Samson goes to his bridal party. And in that day and time, the customs were different, and it lasted about a week. And so she has people that she had invited. And Samson has to be a pretty ingenious guy, pretty creative guy. He comes up with a riddle that they cannot answer. And so he tells no one, and they cannot answer it. And if they lose, they have to give him some clothes. They have to go buy him some clothes. And he said, if you answer the riddle, you can give me some clothes. And so he was a betting man. He was a competitive man. And he has this deal going here. And they cannot find the answer. So after about 2 or 3 days, they start talking to their cousin, who was the one that he was going to marry. And they say, look, you're going to find out what the answer is. And so she starts to ask Samson, well, tell me what the answer is. Come on, we're about to be married. Tell me what the answer is. I want to feel closer to you. And she starts whining, and she starts bugging him. And she starts saying, oh, would you please tell me? And he says, I haven't even told my mom and dad yet. And she starts this stuff. If you really love me, you would tell me this. Young ladies, don't ever be a whiner. Don't ever be the kind of person that just nags and nags and nags until you get your way. Because most of the time you can get your way, but that is not the kind of young lady you want to grow up to be. And so she nags at him, and she whines at him, and he just listens, and finally says, okay, and he tells her, and she tells her cousins, and they tell Samson, and they win the bet, and he knows what's happened, but he still feels compelled. He's bound by the bet. He goes out and kills 30 people, takes their clothes, and pays the bet off. And he's so ticked off that he goes home. Now, the father thinks the wedding's off. And so he marries the girl to someone else. And about 2 weeks later, Samson comes back and says, I want my bride. And the father says, I thought the wedding was off. I've already married her to someone else. And so Samson gets so ticked off that he said, I'm going to get back at these people. And he concocts an incredible plan. Talk about ingenious. It says in the Bible that he caught about 30 foxes, or 300 foxes. I don't know how long this took, but he destroys the crops of the Philistines. He burns their crops up. And the Philistines are ticked off, and they say, what's up with that? Who did this? And why? And they said it was Samson. And the reason he did it was because his bride was given to somebody else. The Philistines go and kill the bride's whole family. They wipe them out. And Samson hears about it, and he says, I'm going to get my revenge. And so he goes and slaughters the Philistines. And then he goes back to his home. And the Philistines raise an army to go get Samson. And so keep in mind, the Philistines are stronger than the Israelites at this time. And so the Israelites say, Samson, what are you going to do? We can't afford to fight them. And Samson says, you tie me up and you give me to the Philistines, just don't hurt me yourself. And that's exactly what they did. And so Samson allows himself to be captured. And he goes back to the city of the Philistines, and then he just breaks everything open. One of the most incredible feats of strength ever accomplished by a man. And he is surrounded by several thousand Philistines. He finds a rock crevice that he puts his back up. He backs himself into a place where they cannot surround him. He finds the jawbone of a donkey. That's the only weapon he had. And buddy, the slaughter begins. And they start attacking him. And here is one man empowered by the Spirit of God and just wreaks havoc on these people, destroys them. It says that he killed 1,000 of them. And then he basically goes home and lives in a cave. And the idea is this. You look at Samson, buddy, and he was tough. Nobody messed with Samson. He burned for revenge. He burned with anger. He burned with jealousy. He was controlled completely by his emotions. How about you? How about you and your emotions? Do they rule you, or do you rule them? Samson, the strongest man in the world, he could control anyone except himself. How about you? Are you quick to fly off the handle? Are you quick to say anything to anyone? Are you quick to put people in their place? Now look, it didn't bother Samson. Samson was tough. I mean, he just walked through life like a bull in a china shop. And nothing bothered Samson. He was tough. He would mess with you. I tell you what, I would not only not want to be an enemy of Samson, I wouldn't even want to be his friend. Because he just went through life. And I know people like this that just go through life blasting everything. And they feel fine. Oh, I'm tough, man. I can handle it. But look at the trail he left behind. How about you? Look at the trail already you're leaving behind. You look at Samson's life, it was broken promises, broken commitments, broken vows, which leads to broken relationships, broken families. It said Samson went to live in a cave. People didn't want to be around him. You live your life like Samson, and you might be tough as nails. Nothing might hurt you. But how about your mom and your dad or your grandparents? How about your brothers and your sisters? How about your friends that you have? Because you can live your life in such a way to where people don't want to be around you. They would rather you live off in a cave somewhere. Because they never know what you're liable to do. Never know what you're liable to say. And you can walk through life thinking everything's cool. And you'll put people down. You'll do what needs to be done. And you can walk through there and no big deal because it doesn't bother me at all. You better watch out, Samson. You better be careful, Samson.